page 26 of your agenda.
Thank you. Mr. Jackson, where are you hiding on my screen? Okay, so you're on mute. Welcome along. Thank you very much for taking the time to submit, and even better, taking the time to come and talk to us. So you've got 10 minutes, and ideally, if you can allow some time in your 10 minutes for questions. We have all read your presentations, so it's all yours.
Cool, thanks for having me. Appreciate you guys' time today. So I just wanted to have a bit of a dialogue with you guys regarding the policy. I'm in favour of making changes to the policy so that we can extend our alcohol license in Raglan. First of all, I'm coming as a member of the community, as a promoter who works with nightclubs and bars in Raglan. And firsthand, I've experienced sort of the negative sides of the restrictions on our local township due to early closing times of bars and nightclubs because of license restrictions. First of all, personally, as a promoter, I have problems booking artists that I want to bring to Raglan that would benefit the bars and communities amount of income they can bring into their businesses because of the time restrictions. It puts a halter on what I can operate with and work with nightclub owners and bar owners in town. If there would be later running times, then that means I could have a more open variety on the sort of artists and acts that I could bring into town, which would benefit myself, benefit the community, because they'd get to experience more of the arts, and would also benefit business owners, local business owners. Follow up to that, I've seen firsthand sort of the negative impacts of early closing times when people are pushed out onto the streets straight after 1 a.m. or in some cases 11 p.m. in some businesses in town. They get pushed out onto the streets and they're still fully loaded and full of energy and full of beans, and they go out and cause trouble and have really bad fights and just street brawls and get into all sorts of mischief and hop in their cars and drunk drive all over the place and do skids and that sort of stuff. And I think that if there was a place that they could sort of if they could remain inside those doors of those businesses, then they could sort of fulfill the rest of their night without being pushed out early and being sent out to sort of residential areas and places like that where they make a whole lot of noise, either with cars disturbing the public, which is really common, or also like going to people's houses and making sort of after parties and stuff, which they often set up PAs and stuff like that and make really loud music that runs right through till the very early hours. And with these residential places, these people go there and they have there's no soundproofing or anything like what you find in the bars, and there's no way that it can be monitored either. So who knows what's going on in these places as far as noise and as far as substance and alcohol use is concerned. So I think that if there was a later license, it could be safer for people as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Right.
Councillor Lynch.
So just a quick question. So you don't have problems with fights at 3 in the morning, but you do between 11 and 1?
I think that from my experience with being in other cities and places where the licenses are longer, people start earlier because they don't have such a short window of time that they have to be in the club or in the bar having their experience. Whereas like in places like Auckland or Melbourne where I used to live, you would go out for dinner first and then you would roll into the venue that you're going to be at like maybe 11 p.m. or something, or 12, and then you'd be in the bar till like 3 just having a dance. And by that point you would have eaten food and you would have done what you needed to do inside the club, and by that point, most people are more than likely satisfied by the fun they've had, and they're quite tired and ready to go home by a later time.
So they're not so argumentative at 3.
They're not so full of beans and like looking for more mischief, because they've probably done all the mischief they need to do in a facilitated environment with security
You've worn them out.
and bouncers. Exactly.
Okay, I can understand that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Gibb.
Yes, thanks, Finn, for coming in.
Right.
I'm a similar point to Councillor Shelley Lynch. I was thinking, it's a bit like daylight saving though, isn't it? We just adjust our time. So you start a bit later. It doesn't really change your behaviour, I would have thought. But you made a point in your submission that they would dribble out in they wouldn't all be out there at the same time, that some would
right.
1, some at 2, some at 3, some at 4, whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm not completely convinced. I can see it's another way of looking at it, but I just thought people would just adjust anyway, and they'd still have that much alcohol in their system regardless, wouldn't they?
Well, when people leave at staggered times, and you have a outflux of people leaving at various times throughout the night, it's easier for the security and staff to manage, rather than everyone being shoved out at 1 o'clock prematurely. And with the town that's understaffed in security, there's only less than a handful of licensed bouncers. It's really hard for them to manage, and I've seen it firsthand, like weekend in, weekend out, basically. And if people would leave at those various times, like you said, people leaving at 1, 2, 3, it's a lot easier for the staff and security to manage that, rather than a massive offload of loaded punters at 1 o'clock in the morning.
All right, thank you.
Mayor Allen.
Yeah, morning, Finn. Just one question then.
Yep.
If council was to mind to agree with your proposal to extend trading hours, you'd be supportive, of course, of a one-way door system, wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. A one-way door system from midnight.
From 11 o'clock.
Well, midnight at the moment is what's in place, but if the policy would be approved, then for a later license, it would be
what if the trade-off was 11 o'clock?
It would be a fair compromise to have an 11 p.m. lockout rather than a 12 o'clock if the license was extended.
The community wants to have
Okay.
Yes, we need to talk about.
Councillor Maguire, you had your hand up. That's moved on now, has it? You're on mute.
My question's been asked.
Okay, good, lovely, thank you very much. Are there any further questions? I think there's some very clear messages in there. I do also share the query of how drunk is drunk and how late is late, which I think is probably what's vexing you the most there. No doubt that will be the subject of a discussion, but thank you very much for your submission, and thank you also for taking the time to come in and talk to us. It's really, really helpful.
Thanks for your time. Appreciate that.
Okay. Thank you. Right, Anthea. Have I lost my piece of paper?
So we do have the next presenter here.
Yep.
Mr. Chris Rayner, submission number 4695 on page 26.
Thank you very much. Hello, Mr. Rayner. You well done. You're now off mute. Thank you for your submission. You have 10 minutes, and within that 10 minutes, if you can allow time for questions, that would be really helpful. All the submissions have been read in advance, so we'll take that as read. Over to you, next 10 minutes.
Okay, kia ora tātou, thank you for having me. Just a couple of quick points. Kind of have to wear 2 hats, and I thought there was actually going to be 2 submission times. One is me as a person and working here in Raglan, and secondly as community board member, because those 2 positions are slightly different. So I'll just start for me as a person, and then at the end I'll sum up what I believe the community board's position to be, which is undecided really. The point is that this policy the aim of the policy is to protect and serve the local community, and around the sale of alcohol, both on license and off license. And the complete focus of the LAP in its initial creation and reviews has never talked with the community about the opening times for on license premises. They've constantly focused all of the focus on off license. And Raglan is unique. Raglan is a world-renowned travel destination. We've got one of the premier world motorsport events here this weekend. Like, Raglan is different, and we actually need to have a unique local alcohol policy to serve our community, both for protecting, but also for what I believe a human right is to go out and entertain, dance, listen to music. Because if you take that away from society, part of society falls apart. If people don't have the chance to go out, listen to music and dance and socialize, you're taking away one of the pillars of the fabric of society. So, and the reality is times have changed and people don't all go out at 7 o'clock at night. Most people, especially people coming to Raglan, will have dinner a la carte kind of late, and the times are not reflective of what is normal. The fact that the government policy is actually 8 a.m. till 4 a.m. indicates that they did some research into what times people go out, and 4 a.m. being probably the latest that people really need to be going out. And we're not saying it has to be that, but what we would like, and what many people have supported me on, is that we would like the opportunity to discuss this as a community. And that's kind of where the community board's position is. We haven't had time to workshop it and all formulate a unanimous opinion. But what we can agree on is that just a blanket policy, the same as the other towns in the district, of 1 a.m. doesn't serve our community. And as Finn said earlier, there's plenty of evidence around the world that security staff are better able to manage any problems. Say there's an aggressor, they can take that person out, have them removed, call the police can pick them up, all between the hours of 1 and 2 and 3, while perhaps the victim is kept safe in the venue. At the moment, a lot of stuff does kind of start, if there is going to be tension around that 12:30, 1 o'clock, and the staff are more focused on meeting the conditions of their license, having everybody off premise by a certain time, than they are about resolving security issues. Whereas if they had a later closing time, they could spend a good few hours on resolving security issues before they have to fulfill the condition of their license to close the venue. And a lot of places allow the music to continue, say, for 45 minutes or an hour before vacating the venue. And that's another way that people can kind of dance off their energy without serving more alcohol. So yeah, there's plenty of examples around the world. As many of you will know, I used to live in Berlin, and I've run venues in the arts and music scene for a long time, and I have a lot of experience in 24-hour, even 48-hour venues. So I've seen it work, and then I've come back to New Zealand and see it not work. Like, I've never seen the bloody street brawls that we've had in Raglan. I've never seen in Berlin. And we worked in some pretty tough neighborhoods and some pretty raw communities. And the kind of fights that I see in Raglan, it's shocking. And those of us who work in nightlife, we don't want that. We don't want these bloody street balls. And we believe we can handle them by being given the opportunity to open up the later on license operating hours for on license venues. That's kind of, that's the main thing, really. And also, I believe that the 7 a.m. thing is actually against, like, you're actually not fulfilling the law. And then the consultation, by not including the on license opening hours in the consultation, I don't believe you're fulfilling the local Government Act 2022 on consultation, because you're only consultating on one part of what a local alcohol policy is supposed to consult on.
Okay, interesting points. Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Mr. Rayner? Councillor Gibb?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Rayner. You do make some really interesting points, which perhaps I can agree I've never thought of. Have you talked to the other bar owners in the area as a community board person, or as yourself, I guess? If you talk to them, you're coming from just one space one.
Not
yes?
at all. I've talked to the other couple of venues that do have late licenses, and it's not that they would want to in any way be using the full extent of their opening hours possibility every day that they're open, but it's the fact that, say that a big name comes to town and they do want to operate till 2:30 or 3, that they can easily do that. A lot of them are like, oh, we don't want it too late because we also want to get out of here. But having the flexibility to manage your closing time gives you a lot more opportunity in business and a lot more opportunity in security.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I've got 3 more questions for you. Councillor Church.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I agree. There's some good points, interesting points you make, Chris. Just when you, in that scenario where you have a longer hours, but you also said that therefore gives opportunity for the security to deal with the issues that start happening around that 1 o'clock time and focus on those hours that you want to extend it. I guess that sort of is for me like a red flag as to what's happening inside the premises, that things are starting to escalate, and that you need that extra additional security to deal with them rather than just putting them out on the street.
Well, it's a physical barrier. It's like the reality is there's always going to be a few bad apples that try and spoil the party for the ones that won't actually want to enjoy themselves. And the bad apples really do sometimes need to be separated from everyone else who's having a great time. And it's the majority shouldn't be punished. And the easiest way for a security person to de-escalate a situation is to say, take the aggressor or aggressors out of the situation, away from the person that they are aggravating, and put them on the other side of the wall and try and calm them down and talk to them in a calm, frank, and de-escalation is the main name of the game when it comes to security. But if, say, that's all happening around 1 a.m, but you're actually got to get all of these people out of the venue by 1:15 because that's the rules of your liquor license, and you don't want to jeopardize your liquor license, you're unable to put the attention that you need to de-escalate the problem, and instead you actually accidentally inflame it by having to put, say, the victim, who might be then getting aggressive back after being aggressive, someone's been aggressive towards them. I've read through some of the other submissions, and there is some evidence out there to kind of back that up. But I think the main thing is that in this whole process, there really seems to be a lack of representation of people that actually work at the coalface of nightlife and entertainment and music. And we're the ones that, commit our lives to making this happen. And
Mr. Rayner, I have four more questions for you, and you have 1.5 minutes left.
Okay.
So,
far away.
Councillor Henderson, quick question. Mr. Rayner, quick answer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is on, you did mention, and I just wanted seeking clarity here, that you stop serving alcohol at a certain time and maybe have the music going on for another 3/4 of an hour. Is that something you were looking at?
It's one of many ideas that has been proven to work in other jurisdictions. And the main point of this is that we want the opportunity to discuss this as a community and work out with the evidence what is the best practical solution. Obviously, a little bit longer operating and then perhaps a little bit longer music would be a good compromise, rather than just
Councillor Smith. Councillor Smith, do you want to go to your question?
Yes, thank you. In relation to noise, in recent hearings in relation to Raglan, the issue of over 50 complaints against one premises and many complaints against others, noise going at unreasonable levels up to 1 o'clock and beyond, it seems to request a longer period of time would be counterproductive, and the issue under the Resource Management Act Section 16 is not to allow noise to disturb people's way of life. So what you're suggesting is counterproductive, isn't it?
I would argue that it's the opposite, because the venue that in question, our main club, has spent a lot on noise proofing and has proven that the noise complaints since that noise insulation was installed have actually been from other venues doing events, but they often get pinned on. And the other point that Finn made is that if we're going to talk about noise, we need to talk about whole community. Quite often, when people are kicked out at 1 o'clock, they go to a private residence at 1:30 in a peaceful neighbourhood and crank up their own music and have a lot of people over, and it actually brings the noise back to the suburbs in an uncontrolled way in venues that are not set up to manage the noise. So
we're going to go to Councillor Wallerton now.
I think the noise thing, you've got to look at the big picture.
You are well over time, actually, Mr. Rayner. I've given you an extra couple of minutes. If you can keep your answers short, we've got 2 more questions.
Do we have 10 minutes as RCB, or has it only got 2 minutes?
You have had 12 minutes so far.
Yeah.
So basically what I'm hearing is longer hours, closed door policy, and then the venue open after a last call situation, as long as people don't load. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's a proposal that we would like to take to the community for wider discussion. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Ms. Moana Tufongai.
Thank you for your presentation. Just a quick question. You've spoken a couple of times about brawls that you've witnessed. Were the people involved local people or from out of town?
A mixture, both, and other old locals that have come back from being away in Australia, all sorts. There's no real.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that was a subtle hint there, actually. Thank you very much, Mr. Rayner. You have made some points in the fact that there were a number of questions on different topics, indicates there is some thinking to be done. So thank you very much for your time, and thank you for your very good submission as well.
Yeah, thank you very much to everyone. And yeah, the main point is that, and RCB and I agree, is that this needs to be discussed.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Anthea, do we have our next submitter, please?
He is just logging in now, apparently. It's Mr. Matthew Five. Submission number 4572 on page 27.
I swear I'm going to develop a new form of Zoom where the person coming on has bright lights around the edges, so you don't have to run around the screen looking for them. Do we have them there yet?
Not yet.
Right, do we have him
not yet.
Oh, do we have the next submitter?
No, the next submitter is Paul Raddick from GDL, so Woolworths.
And he's
Countdown Supermarkets.
he is a little while. He's only 5 minutes away.
10:20, yeah. Oh, God.
Could be a good time, everybody, to stand up and stretch your legs. Take yourself off screen. We don't want to see it.
Or I could just knit a jersey.
You could do it. You could knit a jersey.
Mm.
We are still recording, so you may get orders for it.
God, I'm going off to cry mob here.
Okay, I'm just going to have a look in the waiting room as well. I don't see him in the waiting room.
No, we gave him a call and he said he's logging in. That was probably a couple of minutes ago, so I don't know where he's got to.
Right. Okay, so Grace, can we please just stop the